No, this is a true story, and some thought was going through my mind as I was playing this, and this is by far the most creepiest hack I've ever played. If you're on the IRC, you would have heard me talking about it, but anyway, it's late at night and I don't have lots of time, and I need to get some sleep, so this is all I have time for. So it all happened on tonight of all nights. I was bored, obviously contemplating what I thought I would do to waste time as I chatted with people in the Super Mario World community. We had good times, we shared a few laughs together. Out of boredom, I decided to patrol the hacks waiting to be moderated section. Seems that we had quite a bit, 33 if I recall correctly. The first few hacks I saw when I sorted them out by date were a couple of really horrible ones with bad screenshots to boot. Naturally showed these hacks to the centrities currently on Super Mario World community. We were laughing about how bad some of these were when I just got a hack called Mario. Just that, nothing more, nothing less. The description seems quite odd, as if some Japanese hacker was trying to translate the original plot of Super Mario World into English and failed horribly. I showed these to Kieran, and he started laughing at the description. It read as follows. As you play the role of Super Mario Plumber, certify that you are a beautiful again Bowser, kidnap the evil king. It is your job to save her. The hack includes 6 levels of very long. I simply dismissed this as someone trying to act Japanese and release a crappy hack with some edits. Also, that's what I thought it was, at first. Curiosity got the best of me. I decided to download the hack, not knowing what I was in for, since the single screenshot of the hack was the title screen, with nothing more but the letters Mario from Super Mario World's title screen. I thought this was a little odd, as there was no dates or anything either, as hackers usually place the names and the dates of the title to mark when the project was started. So when I opened the hack, I was greeted by 2 files, one called 3007014, a simple text file, 27 kilobytes in size, and the IPS file, simply named Mario. For some odd reason, I wanted to see what the author of the hack had to say, but when I opened the hack in Notepad, there was nothing but interchangeable symbols and letters and punctuation, sort of how when you open a ROM in a text editor like Notepad. Seems like the author just completely copied the ROM to text form, though I could be wrong. Taking a closer look, at the top of the text file mixed in with the gibberish, I found the only thing that looked like English there. Here is a piece of what I found. Find me, find me, find me, find me, find me. To be honest, I didn't think what to make of this, and I thought it would simply waste some of my time by making me find some text in a gibberish file. That I'm willing to bet no one will ever make any sense of. I decided because of my interest was growing steadily, I would start looking through my horribly disorganized download folder for a copy of a clean ROM, which I downloaded a great deal of times before the events of tonight unfolded, and an IPS batcher. Of course my choice for the job was a Lunar IPS. So then I proceeded to move the ROM and the IPS patcher to the folder with the hack. I patched the ROM, not knowing what to expect next, and I quickly hurried to drag the ZSNES and played what I thought was to be a terrible in the form of a ROM image. I noticed on the boot up that the author had taken the time to change the header of this hack. Instead of the usual Super Mario World you would normally see when booting up the ROM, it just had the letters Mario there again. At this point I gained a little hope, because normally people who do horrible edits to the ROM generally don't know enough to change the header title. I thought I wasn't wasting my time with this, and my mood brightened slightly at the thought of seeing what the author had to offer in this interesting little hack. So the title screen loaded, exactly like it would with Super Mario World, except it was just Mario on the title screen that I had mentioned earlier. Something else had grabbed my interest more so than the unusual absence of layer 3 tiles on the title screen. Mario's normal bright coloured and happy palette seemed, how can I put it, dull. What was once violet like red was now seemed like grey with a slight red tint to it, and I'm fairly sure his pants were looking more grey than blue too. I thought it was strange and wonder why he decided to give Mario such a dull palette. Regardless of what the intentions were, I felt that something was wrong. Not in the sense that his palette was slightly bad, but the hack was empty, like something happened. Upon pressing start and selecting a new file, like a lot of the other countless Mario hacks I've played in the past, there was some sort of intro screen that basically described the entire plot in a short paragraph, just small enough to fit into a small black box. I began reading, and for the most part the message stayed the same, but there was one key factor that made it interesting. Apparently the main antagonist of this hack wasn't Bowser after all, it was Mario? The message reads as followed. What the... This wasn't the original message from Super Mario World, as I thought to myself. Normally I wouldn't think anything of it, seeing how over my nearly 2 years of Super Mario World Central, I had played countless hacks and I've seen many different intro messages, but this one really stuck out. At this point I definitely knew there was something odd about this hack. Upon letting the intro level music played, I pressed the start button on my controller to finally get to the overworld and begin my journey into the unknown hack. Upon entering the overworld, everything seemed normal, same old level paths, same old music, but the level names were different. Instead of Yoshi's house like it's always been, every time I've ever played Super Mario World, it was simply just Yoshi's. The house part was gone. I thought this part was strange and began to lose hope into the hack, as it just seemed like barely anything has changed after all from the original. Unluckily for me, I got my wish, as you'll see when you read on. I decided to enter the level out of curiosity. When I entered, the whole house that normally were gone. No more smoke, no more fire, no more little birdies, no more treehouse. All that was left was a message box. I decided to hit it. Upon opening, the message I expected to be there was replaced with what seemed like binary. Apparently it said notepad. At this point I was on the IRC telling everyone about how the hack I was starting to play weirded me out, which in itself had some sarcastic responses, but hey, I expected it. Anyway, after this, my interest level in the hack skyrocketed, and along with my paranoia, oh boy was I in for a fun surprise, so I decided to head left. Upon reaching what was before known as Yoshi's Island 1, the level was now labelled Never Come Back. Now I thought things were going to be all Kazuo death traps, because generally that was what people named their levels in the Kazuo hacks to make sure that the player doesn't go there. To my surprise, it wasn't quite that way at all, though I wish it had been. Upon entering level 105, I was greeted by an insanely loud clown car sound that Bowser's flying vehicle makes right before Peach falls out. Of course, with my headphones being moderatedly high, the sound scared the living daylights out of me, which wouldn't have happened if I wasn't nervous beforehand. I decided that this time it was best if I turned my volume on my headphones down, as to not get any more unpleasant surprises such as that one. Well, into the level, other than the music, everything seemed to be the exact same, except for the fact that little Koopa that slides on the ledges wasn't there anymore, nor was the Bazil Bill. The dragon coin was still there, however, for some odd reason, I wasn't able to collect it, or rather collect any dragon coins at all. The author made certain of that. I also noticed that there was some brown used block near the spot where the Bazil Bill normally shows up. I can only assume that this was to revisit the level after I'd beaten it in like some of the other creepy stories I've heard in other Mario games. Now I was wondering why this was like this, making me wonder about the intro message. Had Mario done something previously to Dinosaur Land? Was this in Bowser's point of view? I quickly dismissed the latter option because it seemed kinda stupid, so that left me thinking about Mario at one point in time in the author's story did something, but what? What did Mario do? My mind was nothing but rushing at this point. However, I quickly dismissed them and ventured further into the level, only to find that all the blocks basically been hit. Coins had been collected, save dragon coins, those were still there and unattainable, and that there were no enemies, and that I could no longer go down pipes. What kind of hack am I playing here? I kept thinking to myself. At this point I felt uncomfortable. I decided to keep adventuring. Eventually I came across a message box, which I wasn't surprised was still in the level. Being the idiot I am, I went in and hit the block. Upon hitting it, I was hit with the familiar black box once again. The message was edited, obviously, as I had figured that this was a given at this point. It read as follows: Pointer device, I hate you. Now I thought things were starting to get the vibe that the author was twisted and a warped individual, and that I was right about Mario having done something in the past. At this point I was basically rushing to get to the end of the level, so I basically scurried by, and then I came across another message box. However, this one was just a blank box with pointer device at the top with nothing else in it. I quickly disregarded it and headed off further to the right, hoping to free myself of the hell that was once level 105. Upon reaching the end, I saw a fire flower in the top block where the four-way block intersection used to be. However, it seemed too high for me to reach by normal means, so I just continued onward, like the blind curious idiot I am. So I finally beat the level, and as the usual path to the Yellow Switch Palace was unlocked, I decided to head up the path that would normally lead to Yellow Switch Palace, and I found that I entered the main world after all. And I found that was when I entered the main overworld. Every other landmass and the decorations beside the ghost, from the ghost houses and the Yoshi's Island itself, was gone. Nothing really changed at the Yellow Switch Palace except for the Switch message. All that changed was that Switch Palace was changed to Mario World. Boring. Anyway, I found that Yoshi's Island 2 was also been edited. Oh joy, I thought to myself. Sarcasm. Upon reaching Yoshi's Island 2, I found that it's been renamed to Yoshi's House. The original name of level 104 I decided to enter. I decided to enter and found that the palette of the level had been changed along with the background. They seem to have been changed to the same palette as Yoshi's Island 3, you know, the greenish chants and such, except the background was pushed down to rotten brown colour, and the vegetation on the FG that was no longer present. I decided to explore the level a bit and came across the trail of Koopas that countless players have used to make a free 1-up with. I decided to ignore them and to see if there was any more of the level has been changed. I eventually came up to a question mark that holds Yoshi and decided to free him. Upon freeing him, I got the message: Hooray, thank you for rescuing me. My name is Yoshi. On the way to rescue my friends, Mario trapped me in the egg. This had me wondering what kind of sick and twisted hack was I playing, and I thought that all the possible scenarios Mario was attacking Dinosaur Land horribly and causing a massive amount of damage. The author had me hooked with some sick little game, and like any other idiot, I took the bait and kept coming back for more. Somewhere not far from the Yoshi question mark block, I found a message box. I found a message box in the same place I remember that has always been, though if I learned anything at all from playing this, is that whatever message was going to be in that message box was not going to even be remotely normal in the slightest. This made me hesitate to hit, but I ended up doing so anyway, and I wanted to find out more. The message as I was greeting was follows. But, is there anything I can do to change your mind? What the hell? I thought to myself. What the hell does this even mean? Change my mind? What would I change my mind about anyway? Was this about Mario and whatever he did, and how people were trying to convince him to stop? Was Yoshi talking to me through the message box? Or was it about me? About playing this hack? As if the hack was trying to talk me through the message box. Whenever it was some more backstory on what Mario had done, or if it was just questioning my decision about if I should keep going or not, I decided to keep progressing despite the obvious signs that I should have quit playing the hack a while ago. As I progressed further and I thought to myself, I found that I was right. All vegetation was now gone, and nothing was left at all, save a few enemies like chunks and moles and such. Even the pipes were gone. I came across another message box like all the other times before. I was greeted with another cryptic message. Point of device. This is the selfish way out. The selfish way out? What the hell? Was he even calling me selfish or continue to play the hack despite the warnings? Had Mario had some kind of selfish decision that only benefited him? Was Yoshi trying to talk to me? What the hell was this guy even trying to say to me? At this point I was slightly creeped out to this point that I was shaking slightly. A mix of anxiety, fear, and the fact that my room was slightly cold last night. I closed the message box and once again proceeded further. The area of the mole seemed the same, except for the fact that the block next to it was a vine block was now gone. The area of the mole seemed the same, except for the fact that the block next to the vine block was gone, along with the happy clouds and the dragon coins the vine allowed access to. This made me feel gloomy to say the least. Not so much as frightened, as I was depressed. It's a feeling I couldn't explain well. From the point on, it was basically just a big empty stretch of land to the end of the level. I proceeded quickly. I wanted to get the hell out of here, as I felt that I had spent enough time looking around, so me and Yoshi, I still had him at the time, opened up the next path onto the overworld. It too was changed. What was once Yoshi's Island 3 now read as Yoshi Island 7. Memories of the Super Bobbio world flooded my mind, and how the levels would take a giant leaps in the number order, which made it seem ridiculous, though at the time I didn't quite find it humorous due to the common sense and obvious reasons explained earlier. I entered the level. As I entered, I was welcomed by a solid black background and a blue and a grey coloured floor. This place seemed frozen, lifeless and barren. There was nothing in the level at all, save the goal point. Just a clear stretch of land with nothing else at all. I quickly lost interest and finished the level that was once seemed like the most MVP level in the game, though as you read on it gets far worse. With the level beaten and a new path opened up, Yoshi's Island 4 was now just leave now. Now I hesitated as to whether I should stop playing or not, but my interest kept me going further. At this point, Super Mario World community was nothing but me posting findings and messages from the hack, so others could experience what I was experiencing. The channel sadly was unusually inactive. Seemed like no one really cared or wasn't really around. I felt alone. I proceeded into the level. Everything seemed the same, save for the point that there was no water at all to keep me falling from the pits without using Yoshi as a sacrifice. The level was also void of the enemies as well. Whenever I got to the area that seemed too far from me to jump out, I found that I could only walk right across into the air, thus getting rid of whatever I needed to use Yoshi as a sacrifice. It's apparent that the hack wanted me to keep him. I could tell that much. I was able to get to the pipe that usually leads to exit the level. I went in and found that the room was exactly the same, everything in the right place and nothing edited, or so I thought. The message box once again broke the mood of the brief moment of relief I had gained upon entering the pipe. At this point I was questioning whether I should keep going to see how it ends, or quit now while I still have a bit of common sense left. The message box was sort of understandable, and I couldn't really make any sense of it. For a moment I tried to figure out what the box meant, but eventually I just gave up and beat the level. I figured that the box wasn't worth the time anyways. With the level beaten, the path to the first world castle, now renamed from #1 Iggy's Castle to #1 Go Back. I sure did feel welcome here. Sarcasm. I decided to completely ignore the level name, as I just wanted to get this over and done with, and be done with forever. What seemed like a normal castle intro was made especially creepy given the fact that I had to dismount Yoshi. I felt for the first time that I was actually abandoning him, and wish I had taken him with me. The inside room of the castle looked strange. There was a darkish bluish greenish black lava on the ceiling, and the goal points that looked like pillars. Aside from that, next to each pillar there was an increasing amount of message boxes. Next to the pillar, the further I got, the room was basically just a big hallway with no enemies or anything of that sort. Every message box I pressed either gave me a blank box with Yoshi's signature at the bottom, or the message that reads as follows: Don't you think you could have caused enough trouble? Another cryptic message, but at this point I wasn't surprised, not in the slightest. Again, the thoughts in my head were starting circling, wondering what exactly Mario had done. Why was he here? And why everything seemed to hate everything about him and wanted him gone forever. I was feeling more depressed than scared at this point, to be honest, and I had no idea what to expect. Next I proceeded to go down the long hallway, checking the message box filled with nothing but the same two messages over and over again. It's like they were obviously telling me to stop playing or something. Obviously I ignored them and kept on going. I eventually reached the end of the hallway. There was a door which I entered. I was welcomed by nothing but a small section of land, and at the end the level was auto-scrolling, so I figured that this might be the end. That the author wanted me to jump into the pit and commit suicide or something. Thus ended my journey, and I was wrong. The auto-scroll pushed me over to the ledge, and I was still walking. The whole level was nothing but a long stretch of invisible land, to another small piece of land just big enough for a boss door to fit in. The auto-scroll came to a stop, and I prepared for the worst. I gathered my composure, swallowed some of my spit in my mouth, and I took a deep breath. I entered. Nothing but a normal Iggy boss. I felt cheated in a way, though I was happy to think it was actually finally over. I defeated Iggy with 2 jumps effortlessly, which was actually the quickest I've ever beaten him before. After he fell in the lava, the course cleared message popped up as usual. It ended, and I was brought to a rescue egg scene. Though instead of the usual message, I was shown to something more disturbing and vastly different. Like a profile for the scene of the crime, it was read as followed. Victim #1. Eyeballs were unable to be found. The victim was found lying on her carpet. Causes of death unknown. Handmarks with unidentified fingerprints were found all over the corpse. What the actual hell's wrong with this guy? I said to myself as I was reading the disturbing message. I mean, it was a hack, but still, who the hell was this victim? Why was her eyeballs gorged out, and why have I made this unidentified fingerprints that was all around her body? Was this Mario's doing? Is this the author trying to tell me? And furthermore, was this girl Princess Toadstool? It took me a while to see if I read the message correctly, and then I proceeded outwards, though I was wondering what would happen next since the main map was completely gone and there was no trace of anything afterwards. To my surprise, it still showed a path marked for the donut plains. The event tiles still being there, marked the path to the Lones level on the giant map that was once the main world. It was still called Donut Plains 1. I thought we was unable to do more once I entered. I thought we were finally done once more, but when I entered the level, I could see like the previous times, I was once again wrong. Upon entering, I saw 2 message boxes. They said as follows: "There's no way out of here. Fly away." I found it quite strange that both messages boxes were constructing each other. One was telling me that there was no way out of this accursed hell, and the other was telling me that if I could fly away, I could be free, though I saw no feather or enemies to grab one with. Was this telling me I could either rise up to go to heaven, or stay in hell forever? Wallowing in despair? Did I need a cape to proceed, and what would happen after this? Is the whole game like this? I began to create more thoughts in my head, trying to figure the message boxes out, but to no avail. I proceeded to walk to the right. I made a jump, but I found that I was stuck in the area. There was once an invisible wall, and I had thought I would hit a dead end. But when I landed on it, I tried moving right again to see if there was any way to go on. All of a sudden, I heard a pipe sound, and I was making the pipe animation, except there was no pipe present, so it looked quite odd. I was then taken to the level with a black background, stone blocks for a ground, and a small door. I was immediately given a mushroom to prevent me from entering it, so I proceeded further to see if there was anything else in the level. I found that the room was nothing but a long stretch of concrete blocks, and the doors that was too small for me to enter because of the mushroom I got. It's obvious that the author didn't want me to go through in any of them, or I wouldn't have gotten the mushroom in the first place. As I proceeded, I found myself at a dead end. Since there was nothing left for me to do, I tried to go right again. It worked, and I went through the brick wall. It acted like a pipe, and I did a pipe animation that looked like I was going into darkness. I was once taken into a small room with what seemed like a pit and a wall. I jumped down the pit, seeing how there was no other option, though I thought the bottom of the pit was solid. I tried pressing down in a bunch of the areas until I came across a pipe. Mario slowly did the pipe transformation downwards off the screen. Expecting another level, I waited, but there was no more, just a black screen. I was unable to continue, unable to pause or exit the level or move. There was nothing at all. This was the video game representation of death. A crash. Mario had died. After playing, I think I finally understand what was happening. I believe Mario's atoning for his actions, eventually being plummeted into a hell that looked exactly like Yoshi's Island, where he lost to the grip of death forever. I was finally done playing and quite relieved at that. The nightmare was over. Actively on the IIC seemed to be back up again. I quickly shared my tales with the rest of the Super Mario World Central and typed this documentation of it. If you feel daring enough, you can witness my tale firsthand. Remember guys, it's only hacked, it can't hurt you, or can it?